Hi, welcome to my channel. Today in Java programming, we're gonna discuss the difference between the primitive type variables and the reference type variables. So what are primitive type variables? In Java, primitive type variables are the ones that store simple data. For example, int, byte, long, short, float, boolean, double, and char. So here's an example how we can create a primitive type variable. So in the main function, I'm creating a primitive type variable that is I. So I'm doing int I equals to 40. So I'm creating a variable I and assigning the value 40 to it. Similarly, char is also a primitive type variable, and I'm creating a char variable C and assigning the letter A to it. So the data A is stored in our char variable C. So on the right hand side we can see the heap table. So we can see we're creating an integer I and storing the value 40 to it, and we are storing it in the slot number 42. Similarly, we are creating a char variable C and assigning a value A to it and store it in it slot number 46 of the heap. So this variable is storing basically very simple data like a number or a character. Now let's take a look at the reference type variables. So the reference type holds more complex values like objects. For example, string, and string is a class in Java. So here's an example of creating a reference type variable. So under the main function, I wrote string s1 equals to world. So I'm assigning s1 to the word world. So if we take a look at the heap table here, we see that S1 is created in the slot 42. It is not storing the word world. Instead, it is storing the address of the slot that contain the data world. So we see world is stored in slot number 46, and S1 is containing the address of the slot number 46, which is 46. So here we can see reference type variable holds the location or the address of the value, not the value itself. So here we can also say that S is pointing towards the value world, and hence the word reference variable. It is referring to world. So it is a lot like the pointer in C or C++, except Java does not support pointer explicitly, but it uses pointer implicitly. So they use pointers for manipulations of references, but these pointers are not available for outside use. So in layman's term, as a developer, you cannot use or you cannot implement a pointer in your source code in Java. But to process reference variables, Java uses pointers behind the scene. In the other hand, in C, you can have pointers in your source code. For example, you can assign a pointer to point at any specific index of an array in C. I can explain this in another video, but now we just have to know that a reference variable in Java points to the value by actually storing the address of that value. So now let's take a take a look at the difference between the primitive type versus the reference type variable. So here's an example of each type, how we are going to create it and assign values to it. So first we have int I equals to 40. So we are creating a new variable I and assigning 40 to it. So in the memory table you can see that it is simple. I equals to 40 is stored in the slot number 41. And again, I am just using the slot number randomly. The slot number can be anything. Now on the second line, we are saying int j equals to I. So here we are creating a new variable j and assigning the value of I to it. So that means the value of I is 40. So we are assigning j to 40. So j equals to 40 is stored in slot number 43. Here the important thing to understand is that I and j are different variables and they contain two different data. Even though the numerical values of the data in this case are the same, the 40 in I is different than the 40 in j. Like j equals to 40 is stored in slot number 43. So I is storing a value 40 and j is storing another value 40 here. Now let's take a look at the difference in the reference type. So if we go back, we can see here it says string s equals to world and string t equals to s. So the first part is string s equals to world. So here we are creating a new variable s and storing the address of world in it. So in this case it's gonna be 50. So here we can see that the data world is stored in the location 50. As a result, we are assigning the value of s to 50. That means s is pointing to the world y. So here we are storing the address of the world to the variable, to the string variable s. Now on the second part, when we say string t equals to s, we are creating a new variable t and storing the value of s in it. So we created the new variable t and we put the value of s in t, that is 50. In this case we can see that both s and t are pointing at world, that is they are both pointing at address number 50. So from here we can say that reference type variable does not store the data itself. Instead it stores the address of the data, which in this case is 50. So in conclusion we can say that both I and j are two different variables with two different data, that is I equals to 40 and j is also equal to 40. But in this case s and t, when they are reference variable, they are pointing to the same data world.